The Steam Hardware and Software Survey, the litmus test of modern gaming. So I'm going to go through not every little thing, because it's not necessary for what I'm talking about. It's more like looking at the comparison and contrast of what modern gaming is now, especially with the equipment that we can buy in order to run those games, especially how modern gaming is trying to rely more on ray tracing, DLSS, frame generation, all these fancy doodads, instead of actually properly optimizing their game to run without those things. They use those things as a crutch for their games instead of them being an enhancement. They're necessary now. I want to start off with video card description because I think it's probably one of the most important things to look at the Steam Hardware Survey. I just want to also point out this is a survey. You have to participate in order for them to get your stuff. They need your permission in order to understand what hardware that you're using and then put it a part of their survey. So obviously there's going to be human error here where if people didn't participate that have those things, then their numbers aren't going to show up in the percentages. But if you look at the top 10 graphics cards on here, they're not very good. I mean, it's nothing against NVIDIA. That's not my point. Is that, I mean, no, screw NVIDIA. But they're not that powerful. They're not a 4090. They're not even a 4080. There's not even a 4070 Ti Super in the top 10. Hell, the first graphics card is for a laptop. And it's almost 5% of all people that participated in this survey. That is an insanely high number, okay? Of all people playing video games on Steam, they're using a 4060, which is more than likely 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which isn't a lot in the modern era. It's very bad, actually, in the modern era for a lot of games that if you even try to run it at 1080p is too low. The second one's a 3060, which is weaker than this one, but I think this is a PC version, not a laptop version. They are different. This is a regular 4060. 1650 is still somehow up here. I have no idea why. A 4060 Ti, a 3050, a 3060 Ti, 3060 laptop is right there, a 3070 and a 2060. 4070's right here, which is more powerful obviously than a 4060, but it doesn't have that much VRAM either. It has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That's not a whole lot. Dude, a 1060 is out of the top 10, but almost there. By 0.08, it didn't make it into the top 10. Do you know how insane that is? That a 1060 can even come close to being anywhere near the top 10. Are you out of your mind? It really tells you that the average gamer does not really care about playing modern games, though. Because even the bare minimum requirements, a 1060 would be able to run it. There's no way. It also depends on your processor, which I wish they went into processors on here. They only go into video cards. Like, they tell how many physical CPUs are there. They don't tell you specifically, is it a 7600X? Is it a 9600X? Is it an i9-14900K? Which I probably doubt, but you know what I mean? One of the more top GPUs here is a 4070 Super, which is close to 2%. I mean, these numbers are actually getting closer to each other. Still, not even in the top 10 of the most graphics cards used. Not even close. It was more than likely bought on a sale than when it first started. You know, the 3080 is still up there. 1050 Ti is in the top 20. This graphics card shouldn't even be close to that. This graphics card was released, what, 2017? It should be close to being in the top 20, let alone being on this list at all, man. I mean, my graphics card I don't think is actually on the list in which it's named. It's in the other category, which is pretty large. Almost 9.5% is other, because my graphics card is a Power Color Red Devil 7900 XT, and I don't think the XT is on here. Like, you have the 7800 XT, you have the 7900 XTX, which I just shown, but the 7900 XT is not on here. I have a very rare graphics card for the survey, specifically this survey. It's not to say that it hasn't sold well. It's not to say that people don't use it. It's that clearly Steam users don't. Even if there was more people doing this survey, I highly doubt the 7900 XT will be a part of this list. I think a lot of people just went for the XTX just for more power to it. Notice how there's barely any 50 series in here? I just want to point that out. NVIDIA just released the 50 series, what, a couple months ago, and it's not even on top 20, top 30. The 4070 Ti Super is right there. Hell, the 1660 Ti's up here. It's insane. The 2070. Where's the first 50 series? Am I blind? How far down do I have to go? There's a 5080 right down here, which is kind of insane. Not the fact that it's so low on the list, but the fact that the first 50 series card has to be the 5080. And you say, well, that makes sense because that was one of the more first cards released. It's like, yeah, fair enough, but this is in April. I'm pretty sure the 5070 Ti, which is right down here, by the way, was already released, and that proves my point. But still, it's not even up there with the 5080. It's insane. Like, the disparity between the 5080 and the 5070 Ti is like night and day. It was over, what, 10 down? Jeez. Oh, no, the 5070 is right there. I just missed that. My bad. 12 gigabytes of VRAM for the 5070. That's something, all right. But it really goes to show you that the modern gamer does not like playing modern gaming gaming anymore. And I think there has already been news articles about that they're actually actively going to play retro games than ever caring about trying to buy modern games. And you can look at certain Steam charts that proves that point, especially with the modern era and its incorrect ability to optimize games properly without using frame generation or upscalers. But that's one of the issues that you see in the modern era, is not being able to optimize your games properly and being able to run it. A lot of these graphics cards couldn't be able to run modern games at 1440p, let alone 1080p, which is a segue into my next section, which is actually VRAM. I thought I was going to go to resolution, but I want to talk about VRAM real quick and talk about how important VRAM is in the modern era. So the highest percentage here is 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Okay, a lot of modern games need more than 8 gigabytes, unless it's well optimized, but count on your hands of the hundreds of games that have been released in the 5 years. You could probably count on your hands the amount of truly optimized day one, first of all, not a week patch later, day one that was optimized. I mean, hell, you could run Sparking Zero with a 1050 Ti, like I said, but I think I ran it at 720p. I think I ran it at 1280 by 720. Sparking Zero is locked to 60 frames per second, so you didn't have to worry about needing a more powerful graphics card because it was locked to 60 frames. You're not trying to play 180 frames per second on Sparking Zero. And I'm pretty sure there was mods out there to unlock that frame rate, but it made it easier for that game to run, which would be a smart idea if the game was actually much better than what it was when it was released in terms of content. But nonetheless, 8 gigabytes of VRAM is not a lot. And you can kind of tell this correlates with the laptop GPUs and the other GPUs that are on this list that are either 12 to 8 gigabytes of VRAM in the top 25. But the second highest is 12, which would be your 4070s, your 5070s. 5070 was much lower, obviously. The top two in terms of percentage are just over what? Not even 55%. That's insane. They're more like 52.73. So over 50% of people that went into the hardware and software survey doesn't even have enough proper VRAM to run games, not only at 1080p, but at higher resolutions. Mine is 20 gigabytes of VRAM, so I'd be in other. They try to make it more evened out where they just either it doubles or they go by single digits to make it easier. 10 gigabyte one, like I said, that the 1080 Ti had 10 gigabytes of VRAM. I'll correct myself in the video, don't worry. The 3080 has 10 gigabytes of VRAM. We still have people with 2 gigabytes of VRAM still running things. I don't even know how the hell you can run things at 512 megabytes. Are you running like what? NES games? Is this for emulators? What is this VRAM? This is like an insane number. This shouldn't be anywhere close to 5%. I'll put up a graphics card that is comparable to this for PC gaming. My point is that a lot of gamers can't run modern games. It's not the greatest proof ever made. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it's very telling. All right, but what we're going to do next is display resolution. Well, if you don't have the graphics card and you don't have the VRAM, then you're probably not going to run at a high resolution of gaming, especially for modern gamings that require a lot of VRAM and a lot of other things just to make it run at high frame rates. So the most popular resolution for Steam users is obviously 1080p. It's funny to say obviously, when 4K and 1440p have been around for a decade, if not longer, maybe like 11, 12 years, at least in commercial grade, right? Probably 4K, 60 frames per second. No one's buying them. You know what I mean? 1440p has gotten a resurgence. It's definitely getting higher and higher throughout the months. This number should be in the 50s, if not higher, because of how cheap they are now, but just no one cares. I bought my Acer 1440p monitor for like $170, and that's including tax. That's not expensive for a monitor whatsoever. Pretty sure these people that paid for 1080p monitors maybe have paid more than that. And mine's 180 hertz, which is 180 frames per second. But I think also for the 1080p users, they have high refresh rates as well, like 480 frames per second playing Counter-Strike and Apex Legends, whatever those FPSs are, they're probably playing at a high frame rate, and 1080p is usually for that compared to 1440p and even 4K. I know OLEDs have very high refresh rates, but they're not as high as 1080p monitors are. So going on to 1440p, it's 20%. 20% of all Steam users use 1440p. This is a primary display resolution. That means their main monitor, not multi-monitor, because people like to mix and match or just do double 1080p, which is obviously, you can tell by here that 54% just do double 1080p, because 3840 is just 1920 times 2. 1440p is the next greatest resolution in terms of percentage here, and it's good. I like 1440p. It's weird to say middle ground because it's not middle. Okay, it's not technically in terms of the amount of pixels on the screen, but they're getting them much cheaper now. I think the biggest issue, especially with 4K monitors, is that they might just be too expensive, and modern games don't run well at 4K. We got OLEDs that could do 240 frames. You're not playing any modern game at 240 frames per second. Not at 4K, not even with the most powerful graphics cards available for commercial use, let alone being able to pay for it. The next greatest resolution is 4K, and it barely beats 2560 by 1600. Why are 4K numbers so low? I think it is affordability. Even if I said that there were twice as many 4K users as the people that participated in the survey, it would still only be 9%, which is extremely extremely low in the modern era for a technology that's been around for 10 years. And if you want a comparison in terms of video games in general, the PS4 Pro was touted to play in 4K at 30 frames per second. The PS4 Pro came out 2016. That's almost 9 years now. We're getting closer to 9 years of 4K, at least being on a console that could run it, because I don't know if the PS4 regular one could run 4K properly. It probably didn't. That's why the Pro exists. But then 4K 30 frames per second is unacceptable. It should have been unacceptable back then. I think because the MSRP actually helped the PS4 Pro, but it's unacceptable to be playing 30 frames per second at any game in the modern era. Do you want me to blow your mind? Most old games ran at 60 frames per second thanks to the CRT. But that's what most developers were running on for decades. Being able to develop on a CRT, professional business video monitors, or even like John Carmack in 1995, a 1080p monitor to be able to make his games, which is insane. And it correlates to why everyone's running at 1080p, because guess where you get the best frames at? With the proper resolution. You could play in 1280 by 720, but no one does that because it's too small. But also I want to talk about hard drive space as well. You can tell that a lot of people don't even have space for modern games either. Modern games are like 70 to 150 gigabytes. The Oblivion Remastered is ridiculously large. Should never have been that big. No wonder it's unoptimized. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 was what, 70 gigabytes of storage needed? Everything's getting larger, but we're not being able to condense it properly. They don't know how to compress the data without loss. The largest hard drive space is 100 gigabytes to 250. This means free hard drive space, by the way, not total. That's the next one. This is how gamers, they only have 100 to 250 gigabytes of space. Cool, you're good for one modern game. Let's say I'll be very generous, 1 to 3 modern games, and that's it. And this is what people are sitting on because they're constantly installing and uninstalling. I've had to do that multiple times. Or no, I did that just because I was done playing the game. I want to point that out as well. It's a storage issue. Even though I have a 2 terabyte solid state drive at SSD, I still want to uninstall games I don't want to play anymore. It's as simple as that. It's just better for space. But the next highest free hard drive space is 250 to 500 gigabytes, which, like I said, is more than likely from uninstalling games. A lot of these games in the modern era are just too big. And obviously the third highest is 500 to 750 gigabytes, which is only 11%. So if you combine those, it's around like 56%. This is how much space gamers are working with. Less than a terabyte. I mean, if you put the 9% one, which is up to a terabyte, would be almost 65%, around 65% of just having this much space, which isn't a whole lot. Even a terabyte of space would be at generous if every game was 100 gigabytes. 10. I'll even be more generous. Let's say it was 15 games, 10 to 15 games for your free space on your hard drive. That's insane. The next one's 1 terabyte to 2 terabyte, which is a lot of space, actually. But like I said, for modern games, you need a lot of space. It's almost mandatory now because of the way they can't compress the data on their software. They just don't know how to do it. The fact that there's even one that says 10 gigabyte to 99 gigabyte and has 0.2% is insane. But the more realistic numbers is the above 1 terabyte, because 2 terabyte hard drives aren't that expensive anymore. SSDs can be obviously like the $100, $150, $200 range. I should say $100 to $200 range for a 2 terabyte SSD, but they're faster. They're usually better. That's number one at 50, almost 53%, which is a lot. Yeah, like I said, above 1 terabyte overall. So that means they have above 1 terabyte of total hard drive space on their computer, which I wish this went to 1 terabyte and then 2 terabyte, 3, 4. I think it'd be better to expand on this, especially like I said, I have a 2 terabyte, which is, I'd say, more than above average, obviously, but I want to see the difference between 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and 4 terabyte, 8 terabyte. Go up to 8 terabyte and then call it. Because I mean, if you're willing to go specific on video card description, I think you should be able to do it with hard drive space. You're not even saying what kind of hard drive or solid state drive it is. You're just saying how much space is in there, which you could clearly specify more, 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, and I said up to 8 terabyte, because I doubt many people have 8 terabyte of total hard drive space, let alone above that. I kind of wish developers and corporations, companies, whatever, looked at this so they can register when they're producing and developing their game. They actually have a good idea of where they need to put things in the game, what they need to run on what sort of hardware. You can't just run everything on a 490 and say, oh, this is the greatest game ever, and then the average gamer can't even run half of what's going on in the game. Their frame rate's been cut by less than half. It'd probably be a third at that point. That's just the Steam hardware survey. I wish more people looked at this in the business and looked at this not as the be-all, end-all, but a litmus test for understanding modern gaming and the frustrations of dealing with it in the modern era. Have a good one. Take care of yourselves. Gabe Newell exists.